What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguyl here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. It is now the end of 2019. Over the course of the last couple months, we've seen huge games that managed to change the face of gaming and be fun and epic and great. But of course, we've also seen some absolute dumpster fires. Terrible games that are only talked about because they are so bad. But today, I want to celebrate the best of the best. Now, as always, I do want to begin this with a warning, which is that I played hundreds of games this year that were fun, but I didn't play everything. This is the best 10 games that I got a chance to try out. So if there was some weird small indie game like Booby Battle 69, I probably didn't try it. But here, of all the games I played this year, are what I consider the tops. So these are my picks of the top 10 best games of 2019. Number 10. Death Stranding. Now, of course, we have to start this video off by talking about this game because it is easily the most controversial project in all of 2019. It seems like half the internet believes that this is a perfect masterpiece and truly the pinnacle of Kojima craft. In fact, this had a record number of perfect scores on Metacritic for a while, but the other half of the people online think that this is a sloppy mess and sort of just like a movie that you can watch on YouTube. But what's funny is that I don't think that either of these groups is correct. Death Stranding is a good game. In fact, I'd say it's a very good game, but it has a big myriad of flaws. To me, the reason this game definitely deserves to be talked about and deserves its spot on this list is because it's just so confusing in a brilliant fashion. It's creepy, it's beautiful, it has a really haunting soundtrack, and all along, you're just kind of constantly propelled forward. You're constantly just being pushed into ever greater dangers, ever greater situations, and finding out more of the secrets is a really revealing experience. I'm glad I played this game, and while it's not going to go anywhere closer to the top of this list, it's something that I'm glad is here just so that we can all kind of acknowledge that Kojima is still around and still making stuff even if it's not quite Metal Gear Solid. Number 9. Control. Okay, so just to be honest here for a second, this is something that I'm a little bit conflicted about putting on the list, because it is a game that I personally find very, very fun. It is what I would call a cerebral shooter. It's a game that puts a gun in your hand and monsters in your face and tells you to pull the trigger, but at the same time, it's trying to tell you a very weird story at times, with all sorts of twisting elements and weirdness, and honestly some monsters that are just messed up humans floating along. It is a game that's not trying to be crazy blasting over the top AAA experience, but it still manages to sink inside you. This, more than pretty much everything else this year, this game manages to stick with me. Whenever I'm sitting somewhere bored, a lot of times my mind will instantly flash back to these empty government hallways and the times where I had to use my telekinesis to blast back a whole group of enemies at once. This game, it's really, really good in a way that I don't think anybody else attempted. It's not going to get any higher on the list because there is some really great stuff above it, but I just wanted to say that Control is one of those games that I'm very, very glad I gave a chance. Number 8. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Alright, what the heck is going on? I'm actually having to put an Electronic Arts title on a list of the most amazing games of the year, but here it is. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is so freaking good, but part of the reason it manages to work is because it really focuses on the moment-to-moment gameplay more than pretty much any other game this year. Basically, we're playing as Cal Kestis. He's a Jedi that's on the run and secretly in hiding. He's trying to go and bring back the Jedi Order, but at the same time, he's wanting to hone his own connection to the Force, getting new abilities, getting better as a Jedi, and really just getting a bunch of chances to swing his lightsabers around. This is really one of those rare titles that manages to just suck you in within the first 60 seconds. By the time it really begins, you're instantly just involved in the idea, both emotionally and physically. You want to win. You want to crush the Empire, and more than that, you just crave that next big encounter where you can try and hone your own skills and blow up a bunch more stuff. I put so much time into this game, and really, every single second of it was fun. There was no filler, there's no time where I just found myself staring at the map and wondering what could come next. Instead, I just wanted to sit back and kind of absorb all of it. I still have to just say, huge congrats to the developers for managing to pull such an interesting game out and managing to blow all of our minds. Number 7. Super Mario Maker 2. Now, this entry specifically is very different from all the rest because this is a game that is very, very unique, mostly because it's basically just a toolkit. Mario Maker 2, as the name implies, is basically just an idea of, think of it as like Minecraft 2D. It is the ability to create whatever you want, and because of this, it has cultivated a giant community, an ability for millions and millions of players to build and love and share their own style of Mario. That may sound like a tiny idea, but in actuality, this is a huge, expansive thing that just keeps growing bigger and bigger, because basically everybody is constantly playing off each other. Somebody in the community comes up with the idea of making music levels, and suddenly there's hundreds of different songs that are perfectly replicated within this game, or people start making timed tracks that you have to beat in exactly 21 seconds, and if you make one tiny mistake, then instantly you die. It makes it where the more you play this game, the more it gets great. I mean, I really kind of found myself, after dying 1,000 times, trying to get my friends involved and bringing people over and just showing them the toughest levels that I managed to track down. But to me, that is the highlight. The true pinnacle of Mario Maker is when you've managed to fail 1,000 times on a single level and then beat it. This is a game that I think is probably going to be forgotten in a couple years or put down by a majority of fans, but to me, it will always be something I want to go back to just to see what the best rated tracks of that day might be. Number 6. Untitled Goose Game. My subscribers know that in the past I've talked a little bit about the idea of indie stagnation, the fact that there's been a little bit of a persistent problem where it seems like a lot of tinier studios, especially little like independent ones, they've had the issue where they just started to try and replicate things. Instead of trying to make a big cool game on their own, they kind of just copy ideas. And that's part of the reason that I was just so instantly attracted to just the thought of Untitled Goose Game. It is so wholly unique. You're playing as a goose who is just a total a-hole. This thing is a jerk. It steals hats, it makes picnics out of your food, it does everything it can to terrorize this tiny town, and it's hysterical. There is easily no game this year that's made me laugh more than this specific game. I mean, there are so many times where I just sat down thinking that I'd play it for 5 minutes, and I played it for an entire hour because I just couldn't stop terrorizing people. It's more than just achieving objectives, it's more than just honking at people and trying to be annoying, it's about being the goose. This game ended up being a giant success, and I'll be honest, I am super excited for when we eventually get a sequel that I hope is called something like The Untitled Goose 2, The Goose is Loose. Number 5. Devil May Cry 5. Have you ever played a game that was just so perfect it seemed like it was made just for you, where as soon as you got into the world and started trying to practice combos and explore the different maps, it just felt like it was made to exactly your tastes? Because really, that is what Devil May Cry 5 manages to do. With its 3 separate heroes, tons of different places to go, and crazy freaking gory monsters to chop up, this is a very, very cool game that is definitely a little bit on the short side, but I think that's definitely on purpose. It makes it where you can play through it again and again, earning higher ranks, trying to see more spots, and really trying to find new creative ways to beat it. I certainly saw myself going back after the ending credits and trying it again just to see the different paths I didn't take. Since there are multiple heroes, there is sort of a different approach to different levels, and to me, that was great. I love the time attack. I love trying to just see how I could test myself. And more than that, it has easily the best soundtrack of any game of the year. I still find myself literally, if I'm about to try and record a video and I want to get myself extra amped up, I will think of the Devil May Cry soundtrack and pop that on and just blast Devil Trigger all throughout the house, because this is a game that just begs to be ultra, ultra intense. Number 4. Luigi's Mansion 3. Never in a million years could I ever have predicted to love a Goofy game this much, but it is just so freaking great. So this is something where I feel very lucky. Back in January, I beat Luigi's Mansion 1, in March I beat Luigi's Mansion 2, and then obviously in October I played Luigi's Mansion 3, and instantly I was just struck by how much the series has managed to evolve in so many different aspects. It is a really, really good trilogy, but I like the fact that Luigi's Mansion 3 tries to just just bust open the floodgates. It gives you so many places to go, so many different ghosts to stun and smash around, and it also gives you a ton of co-op options. As you're going through this giant haunted mansion, you with your best buddy Luigi can actually team up for the first time and do so many different silly puzzles and weirdness, and every part of it is just so sparkling. I constantly just wanted to try and find new places to go, and I kept wanting to just do things that weren't exactly my mission. Since the entire environments now are so hyper detailed, I kept just wanting to find ways to like smash plates on a table or suck up the drapes. I just wanted to see the limits of this game because I was so impressed by the tech. I mean, if I had to say so, I genuinely believe that this may be one of the most impressive Nintendo Switch games ever made to date, and I'm glad that it's managing to be here and really kind of push the boundaries. If you have not played Luigi's Mansion 3, or you're saying, oh, I never tried the originals, just skip it. Start with Luigi's Mansion 3 right now. You don't need to play the originals. They explain it all. It is so freaking perfect. It functions so well on its own or as a series, but definitely at least give it a shot. Number 3. Judgment. There's a term in gaming that I feel like is very important, which is when we refer to things as groundbreaking, to say that this is a game that's more than just interesting, it's more than just flashy, it's something that manages to sort of defy its own genre. This is, at its heart, very much just an open world title, with an interesting mystery. We're playing as a lawyer trying to track down a possible serial killer in a giant digital city. But what's really cool about this is that there really are no limits. With hundreds of side quests, unlockable mini-games, VR races, all sorts of different little interesting details, fully realized digital arcades that are packed with tons and tons of actual Sega arcade games, there are so many different choices in this game that all mesh as one giant embodiment to make it truly groundbreaking. I don't even like to call this game open world because that feels like a besmirchment of the Judgment name. While this does technically take place in the Yakuza universe, you don't really notice it. This feels like the beginning of an all-new franchise, and a huge start at that. With so many different layers of gameplay all concocted into one giant combination, it feels almost like a cake that you just want to take so many bites of. This is probably, more than anything, this is the one game of the year that I constantly just wanted another taste of. I kept just wanting to go back. The second I was done with any project or any video, I instantly wanted to go back in Judgment and just get lost in the streets and find more people and try and help out others and just see what I could do to try and prepare the city for justice. Because at the end of the day, justice is what makes Judgment so great. Number 2. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. In my opinion, perhaps one of the most divisive games that's ever been created is Dark Souls, because everybody who plays this game is instantly divided into two very separate groups. There's the people who can beat it, who are skilled enough and patient enough to actually beat each of its bosses, and there's the people who can't. But those who are able to actually conquer this game are given such interesting lore and plot, and I think that this line in the sand, this difference between those who can finish it and those who can't, are the people who really, really love Sekiro. This is of course made by the same studio, but I feel like Sekiro, it manages to stand alone because it is both harder and easier. It manages to give you a lot more tools to fight back, more abilities, more techniques, more chances to grapple hook up onto a roof and escape, and because of this, I think it makes it extra addictive every time you fall, because it makes it where when you die, it doesn't feel like a punishment. Instead, it almost feels like a reward, a chance to actually redeem yourself in combat. And more than this, I think that it was really smart choice to make this have a focused hero this time. Dark Souls obviously is a custom character action RPG. You're making you inside their dark, cryptic world. But here, we are playing as an actual samurai, a dude who's here to try and fight off everybody by himself, from Lady Butterfly to mystical ninjas up in the mountains. And all of it is brilliant. There is not a single part of this game that feels like it's trying too hard, or that the bosses just have a million health to try and be overtly difficult. It all has a purpose. Each part of it is a giant symphony that's constructed to amuse and challenge you. I almost want to give this game of the year, but I just can't because the one above it is just a little bit better, so let's get into that. Number 1. Resident Evil 2. You know I had to put this at the top slot. The game is basically flawless. I'm going to make a drastic statement here. This is easily not only the best game of the year, I'll say that the Resident Evil 2 Remake is almost one of the best survival horror games that has ever been released. Hands down across any decade. It manages to have some of the best scares. It manages to have some of the tightest controls. That way it can give you different guns and different cool tech and kind of blow up whatever monsters are in your path. But more than that, I feel like this game really kind of changes the way we look at remakes. So this is technically a remake because there was a previous Resident Evil 2. But while it tells the same story, it pretty much remixes every other element. The way we fight Mr. X. Mr. X now is a lot more hot on your tail. He's willing to punch his way through pretty much any doorway and screw up you trying to solve puzzles. And of course, to go along with this spooky new programming is the fact that the entire world has been rebuilt. There's different pathways. It tries to trick you, thinking you're leading back into classic moments from the original story and then putting you in a different direction. I mean, let's just talk about the fact that it has such good voice acting. Originally, the Resident Evil series was kind of renowned for being just sort of goofy. I mean, everybody kind of talked like robots, like, oh no, there are undead. Now, every line that everybody speaks is just so crammed full with pieces of emotion that add together to create such a great tapestry of terror. It's just so impressive when you take a step back and realize that Capcom managed to do this game so freaking right, and now it may be the beginning of a series of remakes. So many people are getting their first taste of Resident Evil now in 2019 with this masterpiece, and that is so freaking spectacular. I'm excited for what comes next. No matter what, this is a game that manages to really kind of exemplify what made this year special, and more than that, it manages to stand above everybody else as the one game that is just downright excellent. And for that reason, I'm giving it my pick as the #1 best game in all of this year. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Now, this is actually going to be the first of a trilogy of videos that I'm going to be ending the year with. So we just did the best games. Next week, I'm going to be doing the worst games. And then to top it all off, we're going to be doing something very special, which is sort of like a forgotten fun game. So I'm going to be kind of talking about the games that aren't quite the perfection they meant to be, but were still great, and I hope they get remembered. It should be a lot of fun, and thanks so much for watching this here. It has been absolutely epic. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.